I see a lot in South Florida are people that have been in this country that maybe came from Cuba 45 years ago. They've worked here their entire lives. They retire. They get $800, $900, $1,000 a month from Social Security. And then they run into somebody who just got here from Cuba 3 months ago, is 29 years old, doesn't work, and is given $1,500 a month in benefits by our government because they're refugees. That refugee, a year later, is traveling back to Cuba 15 times. So you're a refugee fleeing oppression from a place that you now go back and visit 15 times the following year. And in the meantime, we're giving you Medicaid, food stamps, health care for your children, cash payments from the refugee fund. So imagine if you've been working here for 40 years and your Social Security check is smaller than the benefits going to a 28-year-old able-bodied person who just got here. That's real. That happens. That's happening every day. That makes no sense.
Honestly, Democrats are not the party for America, bro. I mean, in my view, nobody should be voting Democrat, but if you're an American, you definitely shouldn't be voting Democrat. You see how much you struggle to pass the SAVE Act, which is a Republican bill which will prevent non-citizens from voting in election. Now, this is common sense. You would think, yeah, like if someone doesn't live in my house, let's make a more personal example. If someone lives outside of my house, should I have any say about how we conduct ourselves in this house? There's more people outside of my house than inside of my house. So if I let everyone outside of my house, let's say, we'll vote to see how Kenny spend his money, right? This is the government, right? You wouldn't be like, no, you can't vote outside of this house. You don't contribute to this house. You don't maintain this house. You don't pay into this house. Like you shouldn't have any say in what's going on in Kenny's personal house. But we're allowing citizens to have some influence, like non-citizens to have some influence over our governmental system. Make it make sense. There's billions of people outside of this country, and you're telling me that someone who was raised all their life outside of this country come in, spend a couple months here, and then they're allowed to vote in the system that I had to wait 18 years to vote into as a native-born American? Democrats are not a serious party, bro. And they literally trying to make this argument. Illegals don't vote in elections. You're wasting your time passing this bill. Okay, if it's not going to do nothing anyway, why not just have the law there on the books? Then it matters then. Like, in the day, your actions speak louder than your words, Democratic Party. And Democrats are only about themselves, really. And I'm going to highlight some few examples. People were talking about election integrity, right? Because in the day, your answer or non-answer kind of explains what your aim is, Democrats. When combined with mail-in ballots, the system is designed to make it impossible to prove fraud. Mail-in and drop box ballots should not be allowed, as cameras on in-person voting stations will be at least prevent large-scale fraud by counting how many people showed up via ballot cast. Logical people like Elon Musk. It's like, yo, this is common sense. Like, you are allowed to essentially commit fraud, right? There's numerous cases of people using social security numbers of dead people coming up without verification, having a different name listed compared to what was verified in the system, in the social security network. Like, this is some ridiculous ish that we're dealing with as Americans, right? Here's what Rob Snyder said. Be careful of a political party that warns of a threat of democracy while they themselves arrest their political opponents, work with tech companies to censor those who disagree with them, allow men and women's sports and bathrooms, encourage child mutilation surgeries, fire federal workers and nurses for not getting experimental gene therapy, aka not doing what they want. That's authoritarian. Threaten to expand the Supreme Court and eliminate the Electoral College, cause rampant inflation, increase the cost of groceries by 26%, allowing 11 million people to illegally cross the borders, and push the entire world closer to World War III. But Trump is a threat to democracy. They're going to fearmonger about Project 2025. Democrats are not a serious party, bro. They deserve to lose. Man, actually, this is one of the reasons why I believe they say 80% of Americans support mass deportation. But before I show you that, I want you to play this. I want to play this clip about Senator J.D. Vance essentially discussing and destroying this fake narrative that the NBCs of the world, the CNN of the world love to push on the American people. Let's take a look.
Well, Kristen, first of all, you said that it happens all the time, that the number 3 person in the Department of Justice jumps ship to join a local prosecutor's office to go after the president's political opponent. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of American democracy, and I don't think that we should legitimize it. Now, if Donald Trump's attorney general had his number 2 or his number 3 jump ship to a local prosecutor's office in Ohio or Wisconsin, and that person then went after Donald Trump's political opposition, that's a different conversation.
Senator,
all he's suggesting is that we should investigate credible arguments of wrongdoing. That's all that Donald Trump is saying. That is not a threat to democracy. That's merely reinforcing our system of law and government.
I'm tired of this preachy. Oh, sorry, I almost cursed. I'm tired of this preachy party called the Democratic Party telling me how, oh my God, it is different. It's not politically motivated. But obviously it is. If it's not politically motivated, you would allow Trump to change venues from a primarily dominated Democrat district. You didn't. Because you knew odds were in your favor that you get the conviction that you want. So then you could run around and list the facts that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Like these people, bro, this is not a serious party, bro. These people, all they care about is their power and control, and they'll do anything to justify their power and control. Threat to our democracy, as one person put it, means threat to our regime, threat to our political party. That is the hidden meaning. That is the doublespeak of threat to democracy. It is something only a Democrat can believe. Funny enough. People complaining about, oh my God, voting requirements, voting ID will hurt black people. Look how little Democrats think of black people, people of color. That they think adding requirements will make it less likely for you to vote. When we have a perfect example of it in Georgia. The largest turnout of black voters, and they require voter ID. Not voting ID, valid ID to vote. So this is the thesis that Democrats love to push. They'll project on what they're doing onto the Republican Party. They'll say, oh, adding ID requirements is going to hinder black people from voting. And then after Republicans do it anyway, and they still put the voting requirements in, the largest black turnout came out the following election. I believe it was 2022, I believe, if I remember correctly. It might be even sooner than that. And they had the highest black voting turnout up to that point. Make it make sense. Democrats have a claim and they get proven wrong, as usual. Per usual. Here's the difference. Here's the dichotomy of why people are having a problem with this. Look, let me ask you a question. What do you consider more important and to protect from fraud? Boarding a plane or voting? What matters more? What's more important? Voting or boarding a plane? I'll say voting. But you need an ID to board a plane. But you don't need an ID to vote. Make it make sense, guys. Getting a prescription, I think that's pretty important. You know, you want to make sure the right person gets it, or else you're gonna have a bunch of people dying of drugs they weren't supposed to consume. But still no voting, right? If voting's as important as getting a prescription, why aren't you requiring ID for voting? Applying for a job. Voting is less important than applying for a job, but for some reason, we allow them to ask us for ID. Hell, they ask for Social Security. They ask for 2 proofs of verification, not 1 proof of identification. You need 2. But you can't do that for voting. They got to make sure, hey, when you apply for a job, are you a U.S. citizen? But you don't get the same question for voting. Democrats, you and your voters don't make sense. This has happened when you vote on emotionalism, cashing a check, applying for food stamps. I just showed you the intro how not just illegal immigrants, but Many of these people who come across the border, they're already on like welfare programs, government programs, but you're allowing them to vote essentially for a system they didn't pay into. This is why I laugh when people say, "Oh no, Social Security is something you pay into." No, it's not. It's just there. What Social Security has become is the current generation of workers are paying Social Security right now, so that way the older people from previous generations get the Social Security. That's what it is right now. Social Security is merely a program where the young are funding and taking care of the old and the unabled and the illegal immigrants. So you didn't pay into nothing really. All you did, all your tax, all your Social Security that you paid into, all it did was pay for the last generation before you. That's what Social Security has become. And now someone's going to come in the comment section talking about, oh no, Social Security was this, that. Let me ask you something. I have investment accounts, right? I pay into that. If I die, my beneficiaries get my investment accounts. You pay into Social Security. What happens to the Social Security when you die? Oh, your family don't get nothing, but you paid into it. Shouldn't you get a refund because you didn't get to use Social Security? It don't work that way. So my example seems more plausible, doesn't it? That the current generation that's working is paying for the people who just retired. So it don't matter if you live or die. They're like, okay, we just reallocate those funds to someone else. But if it was your money being paid into something, then you would be also entitled for it as well, right? 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 This is one of the arguments why I believe to reform Social Security, you have to privatize it in some way. Because if you privatize Social Security, then it'll work like how my investment accounts work. I die, my family gets my contributions from Social Security. That's how it should work. Just like school choice. My tax money follows my child. Done. But Democrats will vote against this. Which households are on welfare in the United States? Here's one estimate. 39% are native born, 52% of legal migrants. This is what Rubio was talking about, and 59% of illegal immigrants. Now, legal immigrants, I can understand to some degree. You came here legally. You're still trying to find your way around here. But look at that, 59%. The majority of people who are on welfare based on household is illegal migrants. Cash, they seem to be on the lower end. They don't get cash. Food, of course. Medicare. Remember when Donald Trump was saying that if you're allowing all these illegals to come in, they're going to be a burden on Medicare? And black women, right? Black liberal women, black Democrat women. You know, I got to be very specific when I talk about black women, right? Right? 95% of them vote Democrat, but, you know, I got to be very specific about them. They call that a lie. Undecided black women say, oh, Donald Trump, all he does is lie. And then you disprove their lies, and you're like, yo, you just don't know what you're talking about. You're just listening with your feelings. You're listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And that's a big problem in our politique today. Losing 40% of your annual income is insane. Over the course of decades, this family is losing out on 8 figures. It's crazy what people tolerate. And in the US, they still have to pay for higher education, healthcare, and on top, absolute scam. This is how a $1 million household income gets spent in New York by a family of 4. Look at that. Look at that. And New York takes about almost 50, 40, close to 50% of your money if you make over $1 million. And what they use it on? Funding migrants. Funding their bad policies that give bad outcomes. They use your tax money in New York, especially, we're talking about New York, one of these Democratic cities, but I bet California does it the same way. They use it to perpetuate ideas and ideology in public schools, and then they wonder why conservatives don't want to put their kids in public school. 81% of Americans want proof of U.S. citizenship to vote. The Biden White House and Democrats are ignoring their people, as per usual. But they'll sit here and wag their fingers about threat to democracy. You got a whole community of people who attributes your skin color with how you vote, right? This is this not like us. If being like you is to commit crime at a disproportionate rate, to victimize my own people at a disproportionate rate, to be in poverty, right? Because if you grew up in a middle class or upper middle class or God forbid wealthy, rich upbringing, then people will question your blackness. Oh, you didn't go through no struggle. You didn't eat cereal with water. You didn't experience drive-by shootings. Oh man, you ain't really black. If that's what it means to be like you, I don't want to be like you. To be part of a community that rewards its most degenerate, toxic people, uplift people who brag about robbing, stealing, finessing, aka scamming people. I don't want to be like y'all. What, Kitty? Why are you talking about negative stereotypes about black people? Because it's generally true. At least that's what your culture pushes. At least that's the image you perpetuate outside. I mean, give me an equivalent of sexy red in the white community, Asian community, Hispanic community. I know you can find some, but I know in that community, they're not as famous or as looked up to as sexy red. If you want to know who sexy red is, I'm definitely not like you. There's a difference between being politically black and being racially black. I am not defending anyone, but we all know this and should stop pretending that we don't. One reason I don't get bent out of shape about Biden's "you ain't black" comment is because he was only saying what black liberals have been saying for decades. To them, blackness is primarily a political identity that is defined by Team Blue. Sad. This is the uphill battle many people come across. That's why when the conservatives come out, oh, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. All he was doing is reiterating something that black Democrats has been using and abusing for a long time. To compel a man to subsidize with his taxes the propagation of ideas which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. Thomas Jefferson. That's how I feel as a black conservative in the black community. This is how many Americans feel about how the Democrats are using their tax dollars. 81% of Americans believe that illegal immigrants, you need to prove your U.S. citizenship before you're allowed to vote. Democratic parties is out here pulling all the stops to prevent the SAVE Act from passing Congress. So America, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to vote these idiots out? Like, imagine that. An American political party is vehemently fighting to prevent the verification of citizenship to vote. Garbage party. They're not importing Democrat votes. They're importing people names that allow the state fraud process to generate ballots. This is an important distinction. The migrants will not use the ballots. The DNC harvesters will collect them, fill them out, Obama. Then the precinct worker will scan them and count them. Caroline. Illegals don't need to vote. They only need to exist to create a ballot. And also affect the electoral college, right? Because electoral college is based on population numbers. Republicans wanted to only have the census count citizens. Because I bet you if you only count citizens, a lot of blue states will lose a lot of electoral power. That means a Democratic vote in California is worth more than a vote in Vermont. Because Vermont got, I think, 400,000 people. We had like 10 million, 11 million illegals cross the border. That means there's enough illegals to completely take over Vermont if they all concentrate in that one state. Make it make sense. We're counting people that don't have the right to vote, and we're giving more electoral points, more disproportional representation for liberals. That's why California has so many Congress people in the Congress and not the Senate, in the Congress, in the House, because they're overrepresented in the population, not the population, in the electoral college because of illegal immigration, because they import people, population numbers, and then this is why they desperately fight for someone against the Republican Party for trying to Only allow American citizens to be counted as part of the census. Only allowing American citizens to vote. This is why they're so against it. Because their whole power and control is based on the fact that they need these laws not to be in place. It's only for political reasons that Democrats act outraged, angry against a position that 81% of Americans would agree with me. Like Thomas Jefferson says, to make me pay taxes into a system and you're not actually working in my own benefit, you wonder why rich people don't want to pay taxes. You wonder why people love the idea that possibly Donald Trump is going to fight for no income tax. Because people don't want to pay into this garbage anymore. They're like, what? I'm funding the government. Imagine this. You're funding half the government that's actively fighting to allow possibly non-citizens to commit fraud and not face a penalty for it. Just like the border, people legally come into your house and they're not held accountable. They don't suffer any penalty for doing that. They actually get the red carpet treatment. What incentive are you creating for more people to do the same? Oh, they didn't really do anything when you crossed the border illegally? Nah, they just put me in this whole camp. This hotel's pretty nice. We complained about the food. They gave us a debit card where we could spend $10,000, so we went to eat like kings in America. Oh, I should try that. That's the incentive you're putting out, Democrats. But you got to look good. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party. They're a party that looks good instead of actually being good. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think that this will eventually backfire on the Democratic Party? And I think the only consequence that the Democratic Party actually respects is if you just vote their asses out. Period. That's the only way the Democrats will get the message. Hey, you work for the interests of the American people, not for some globalist. I don't know what the hell their idea. I don't know who the hell they're fighting for, but they ain't fighting for Americans. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I really do appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.